this is a kind of our fundamentals recommendations that diversify crop rotation, diversify your agronomic practices that will help, at least 70% of your weed problems or your pest problems. But at the same time, we need to think about it like, some of these farmers are pretty, and there is a diversity in farmer as well. You will see conventional farmers who are just relying on herbicides as a weed control tactic. And there are a bunch of farmers who are just organic here, do not use any herbicides, and they are relying on, other weed control tactics, mainly tillage.
Welcome to the Crop Science Podcast Show, brought to you by Wisenetics. I'm Brian Ernell, and I'm coming to you from the campus of Oklahoma State University. Today we have on Dr. Vipan Kumar, Associate Professor and Extension Weed Science Specialist with Soil and Crop Sciences at Cornell University. Dr. Kumar's research program at Cornell is primarily focused on understanding the biology and ecology of the most problematic weed species and developing integrated weed management strategies for New York field crops and for the Northeastern region. Dr. Kumar is currently serving as an associate editor for Weed Science and Weed Technology, and is also the recipient of the 2023 Outstanding Weed Scientist Early Career Award from the Weed Science Society of America, and the 2022 Early Career Award from Crop Science Society of America. I'm excited to have on Dr. Kumar today because our careers have crossed paths a couple times, and we've been near. So, Vipan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the brief introduction, and great to be on the podcast.
So spend just a brief moment and kind of let our audience know about your origin story. How'd you end up in weed science and then at Cornell?
Oh, great. Yeah. Just to start with, I'm originally from India, northwestern part of India. So grown up in the state called Punjab. I grew up in a small family farm. So we grow rice, wheat, sometimes sugar canes. So I know about agriculture from my childhood. So dealing with the weeds in rice crop was one of the nightmare during my childhood, and took, labor and manual weeding is a daunting task for folks growing rice in that part of the country. So, during my initial educations, I went to Punjab Agriculture University for my undergrad, and that was the time when I decided to go for higher educations and mainly for weed science. Actually, I started my master in weed science at Punjab Agriculture University, but I got an opportunity to work for a master program in Louisiana State. 2009 was the time when I came to the States, and I finished my master. That was not a weed science, but I learned a lot about weeds, especially for palmer amaranth in the South. I was working in cotton. And ironically, my major advisor, who was a cotton specialist, agronomist, he moved to Monsanto at that time, which is a Bayer crop science now. I got transferred under a weed scientist, Dr. Donnie Miller. So he trained me about weeds and herbicides. But after finishing my master, I actually officially started my PhD program under a trained weed scientist, Dr. Prashant Jha at Montana State University. So I spent 4 years in my PhD program in Bozeman, and also did 2-year postdoc work. And all my PhD work was on managing weeds, understanding ecology, biology, as well as looking at herbicide evolutions and managing herbicide-resistant weeds. So from there, I took the path to a faculty member at K-State. So I spent another 5.5 years at K-State Western Ag Research Center in Hays, Kansas. And part of my duties were 100% research, looking at the strategies, how we can manage weeds in dryland crop production systems, especially in wheat, sorghum production system. So 2023, I joined Cornell. In coming to Northeast, my duties have not changed, but my split has changed. So, so I'm a researcher as well as extension specialist now with Cornell for the last 2 years, and part of my duties are to work and help producers, field crop producers, in terms of weed management in major field crops, including soybean, corn, alfalfa, as well as other small grains, including wheat and barley.
So, Vipin, I mean, you've been all over the U.S. You spent time in the southeast, the humid south, and you took to the place where there's no humidity in Montana, and really western Kansas isn't much better than Montana half the time. And now you're in New York. So can you share a little bit about, I don't have as much knowledge about the field crops within the Northeast and your weed problems. So can you, I guess, two-part, describe the differences of moving from the basically arid west to the Northeast, because they're, I can only imagine, slightly different systems.
Yeah, I guess yeah, that's pretty interesting story to tell. But I will take you a little back. Coming from India to Southeast, Louisiana was a cultural shock for me.
Yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
but from Louisiana to Montana, that was another shock.
Mhm.
Going from cotton field, spending summers in the cotton fields, and going to a uh, no-till wheat fallow production system in Montana was totally different. Where rainfall or annual rainfall is 12 inch in some parts of Montana. So, in terms of experience, I learned a lot in terms of the farming, the practices, as well as the communities from coming from the small farmer communities in India to the large farmers in Southeast, as well as Montana and then Kansas. But coming from Kansas to New York for the Northeast, this was another shock because the farmers in the Northeast, they are small land holding farmers. And there is a diversity of crops. In Kansas, Montana, I was literally working with basically wheat farmers or, the farmers having a fallow ground. But here I'm dealing with the farmers who have all kinds of crops and diversity of crops, not only field crops like corn, soybean, small grain, but also a lot of alfalfa, a lot of forages, as well as specialty crop farmers, especially vegetable farmers who rotate some of these fields with some of these vegetable crops, as well as horticultural perennial crops, including vineyards, as well as apples. So coming to Northeast is also a learning curve for me, understanding the weed issues, understanding the cropping system, because there is no like silver bullet I can give a recommendations to a farmer compared to Kansas and Montana, where farmer in generally having standard crop rotation, wheat fallow or wheat sorghum fallow. That's kind of the general crop rotation in western Kansas and Montana. But here in New York, things are not like that. And have to be very, very careful when I give recommendations, especially for herbicide recommendations for weed control. You have to ask what you are rotating with, what are your crops, and what are your major weeds you are targeting with this herbicide. So there's a plenty of dynamics there that I'm learning over the time, and I'm still learning, understanding, because the agroclimatic conditions are different. As I said, the cropping system is very diverse, and the weeds are also very diverse. Some of the species we are also seeing now in Northeast, which are more dominant in Western Kansas as well as in Midwestern United States, including bigweeds, palmer amaranth, and waterhemp, now showing up in New York as well as other Northeastern states. So we are coming up with the more and more invasive weed problems in the Northeast and trying to educate folks that, can be a highly problematic in the futures, and how to tackle these problems in a more holistic ways so that we have a more sustainable crop production systems.
So I guess this goes into just one of my curiosities, Vipin. If you look at, you talked about the challenges of having such a diversified crop rotation due to carryover and residual. Balancing that with the benefit of having such a diverse crop rotation with, I think about trying to manage resistance. I think about let's diversify crop rotation. Can you kind of talk about the dichotomy of those two scenarios?
Exactly. As I said, this is a kind of our fundamentals recommendations that diversify crop rotation, diversify your agronomic practices that will help, at least 70% of your weed problems or your pest problems. But at the same time, we need to think about it like, some of these farmers are pretty, and there is a diversity in farmer as well. You will see conventional farmers who are just relying on herbicides as a weed control tactic. And there are a bunch of farmers who are just organic here, do not use any herbicides, and they are relying on, other weed control tactics, mainly tillage. And, on the top of that, some of these states, especially for the New York state, herbicide options are limited, and farmers are still using or relying, especially conventional farmers, still relying on Roundup or glyphosate as like a single tool, as a silver bullet. So some of these practices, I'm trying to educate them how that can lead to major issues of herbicide resistance, not only glyphosate resistance, and then you are out of option. But having this crop rotation or diversity of cropping systems, the issue is with the complex issue is also not only diverse crops, we also have dairies, a big industry here in the New York, and the requirements, the forage requirements or the silage requirements are different for those folks. And these farmers are not like every year they're going to rotate with this vegetable crop or that field crops. They're going to keep changing, and sometimes they start growing corn for silage. So things get more complicated. So there is not like a general recommendations I can come up with if I'm talking to a grower and who's dealing with this specific weed problem. So I think the issue is multifaceted, complex, and I have to see the situations, every situation as a unique approach, so that I can give some sort of recommendations based on their history, based on their future outlook, what they're going to grow, what they're thinking, and what they are seeing as a major weed problem. Just rotating crops. Yes, it helps, fundamentally, but in our case, it's kind of limited by the other options do we have, especially for herbicide option we have.
So I'm kind of curious. I have not had a lot of interaction with silage, at least in the nutrient management I have, but not in more of the production systems. When your producers are working in silage, are they as worried about the weeds as they would be if they're growing, say, a grain corn?
Yes. In recent years, as I said, some of these challenging weeds have come our ways, especially palmer amaranth and waterhemp. And I'm seeing more and more issues, especially with waterhemp spreading more rapidly in the state, especially in corn as well as soybean producers. And I have talked to a lot of producers who are having these corn for silage purpose, and they are dealing with palmer amaranth. So I would say, yeah, it's. I think it's pretty much same for both silage corn producer as well as grain corn producers in terms of weed issues. On the top of that, they are growing, having dairies. They are using their manure as a source of nutrients, and I see that could be a one, method or way of spreading this pigweeds from field to field. We haven't tested a lot of these manure yet, but that's going to be one of the research question I like to fill the gap. That if this is the reason that we are seeing more and more spread, because water hemp first report was 2014, and it was like a few plants in one field crop, and now we have 22 counties with the heavy infestations in some fields, heavy infestation of waterhemp. And similar is the case with the palmer amaranth, which was a very recent observation. 2019 was the first time we saw some palmer amaranth in just 2 counties, and now we have 6 or 7 counties with the reports of palmer amaranth.
Well, that makes sense. I guess I was, and that makes a lot of sense as you talk about. I was seeing it from, our side. We have a heavy grazing state, and so most of our producers that have wheat for grazing don't mind if there's a little Italian rye or cereal rye because it eats the same. But I see what you're saying. This is more mature, more likely to have some seeds delivered into the silage, and then through that system. That's yeah, that could be scary if you think about if that seed has viability from that point all the way through the legume and back out.
Exactly. Yes, and there are some recent research shows that. I think it's one of the research in Dakota or one of these Great Plains states have shown that those pigweed seeds can still be viable even it goes through the animal. It feeds, it takes, and it still stays alive in the manure. Even that manure is sitting for many days. So that could be another one reason that we are seeing this spread, and another reason I'm seeing. As I said, these farmers are small farmers. It's not like a big farmers, and they are buying equipment from Midwestern states. We have examples. Have a grower who had bought a old combine from Illinois, and he got a contaminated combine with water hemp seed, and he's dealing with that water hemp for now last 4 or 5 years. So, contaminated equipments and using those equipment is another reason that we are seeing more and more of these problematic weeds in the New York as well as in the northeastern states.
Yeah, we have blamed a lot of weed problems on both custom harvesters and buying used equipment from Texas. Really, anytime we can blame Texas for something, we try to. So, but yeah, that movement of seed on equipment's always been a challenge. I want to kind of transition a little bit. I have a question. So this is more, we do have quite a few scientists, especially young scientists, watch this. I'm curious about your transition because not often do I get to visit with somebody. You had a great program in Kansas. I refer to your work on a regular basis. And then you moved not just geographically, but in kind of program direction with more extension. How did you do that? What was your approach hitting Cornell? How did you tackle that change?
Yeah, it is. It is a little bit daunting to start with. Starting a new program, as you know, it's not an easy task. It takes time, takes efforts, and these are the questions came to my mind when I was, making the decision to move to Cornell. But at the same time, there were opportunities that I was seeing coming to Northeast that I can, utilize in my career. And some of these opportunities I would mention is that coming to Cornell, I had flexibility in terms of collaborating with the folks not only at Cornell but also in regionally. That's what I was doing in Kansas as well. But at Cornell, there's a lot of those in-house and out-of-state collaborations that I could quickly pick up and initiate some of the projects, some of the problems the folks were dealing with. And the first season, I really spent with the producers talking about what are my thoughts and asking feedback and all that. And on the top of that, I see there is a lot of opportunity that I can collaborate overseas as well, coming to Cornell, and have started some collaborations. But coming to the Northeast versus in the Western Kansas, I see one advantage I had was I'm on campus and I have access to excellent graduate students. There are a lot of those students, young minds, wants to pursue higher educations, even a master, PhD, or even 6-month training. So I see a lot of applications and I think that's the plus point, being on research center versus being on campus. That was one main reason that I made that decision. Otherwise, because at Kansas, I was doing pretty well in terms of research, in terms of resources, in terms of support. But one thing I was lacking, that having the access to these young minds. And I see that brings a lot of values to your program, not only for research, but also for next generation education of next generation. So I see that, if you're thinking to move and making those decisions and making transition in your career, some of these plus or opportunities you need to weigh high when you're making those decisions.
So I guess the last question in these lines is that I've seen many do this mid-career shift. It looks to me like you're more comfortable with sitting at the situation for a little bit and learning more instead of going right out. A lot of young scientists jump in, they have to do, but it seems like these mid-career, kind of like you say, you're more comfortable with actually filling out your environment and kind of taking that process a little bit slower than new faculty. Would that be appropriate to say?
Exactly. Yeah, I took a little time here, as I said, and this position at Cornell, was dormant for a little bit while, and there was a real, need for applied weed scientists. My predecessor retired somewhere in 2016 or so, and then since then, this position was on hold. So coming to this role and seeing the needs and seeing the excitement among the stakeholders was really, really exciting. Coming to any commodity, talk, I see that they come and talk that this is the type of work we are looking for. But as I said, transitioning in this mid career, I took a little bit time and tried to settle and see where things are, because I had experience from Kansas that I can utilize. That how can I develop and explore the opportunities here at Cornell versus when I started my career as a faculty member at Kansas State. You just get started and you start running right away. I took little time, but I kind of see the horizon. I see the needs. I see what exactly New York farmers are looking from my side, so that I can develop some of those research programs that meet their needs.
Well, it's a perfect segue, Dr. Kumar, and I've taken it too long to get you there, but let's talk a little bit in the last few minutes about the research that you're doing. What's your current active programs?
Yeah, so currently we are doing, different aspects of weed science research. As I said, my program is very applied. I work with the growers. I'm an extension person. Deal with the daily basis with the farmers' calls as well as their questions. So I try to work on things which really means to our farmers in terms of weed control. But I also do work on weed ecology, weed biology, as well as looking at some novel weed control approaches. So right now we are looking at as a statewide surveys looking at herbicide resistance, status of herbicide resistance in weed populations across the New York State, not only in field crops, but other crops. As I said, there's a diversity of crops because there's a big knowledge gap here. If you look at the herbicide resistant database, international surveys, New York is way back in terms of reporting herbicide resistance, but that has changed dramatically. We have reports of triazine-resistant lamb squatter probably in mid 80s or early 90s, and after that, no reports of herbicide resistance. So I initiated this project. We are looking at statewide surveys. We are asking farmers to help us sending seeds so that we can test it. Have a graduate student looking at this component, and then we are doing complementary studies looking at on-farm trials, what option, herbicide option, as well as other tactics, multi-tactic weed control approaches can help these farmers. As I said, New York farmers are pretty diverse, and they are also relying on ecological based weed control, such as cover crops is another one, tillage based weed control. So we are trying to integrate some of these methods along with effective pre and post herbicide option that can work to control some of these herbicide resistant weeds. In addition to these, we are looking at some novel weed control approaches, especially harvest weed seed control, looking at the Ready Cop's seed impact mill, which is quite. We did some work in Western Kansas and has been going on. This work has been going on in different institutes. We have some collaborators in other institutes, especially University of Arkansas. Dr. Jason Norsworthy is doing some of that work. Then Louisiana State, Dr. Prashant Jha has been leading some of those work. So we are looking at not only the seed impact mill, but also the chaff lining, another piece of harvest weed seed control as alternate method of reducing the weed seed banks, especially in pigweed seed banks in our crop rotations. And a lot of cover crop work. We are integrating cover crops along with herbicides. We are integrating cover crops along with these harvest weed seed control approaches. And in addition to those, alternate tactics, we are looking at the precision weed control as well, especially using machine learning approaches, computer vision approach in terms of detecting weeds, recognizing weeds, and then doing some site-specific weed control. So those are kind of the major areas we are exploring. But coming this year, we're going to have another PhD student starting some trials looking at weed control approaches in organic system as well. As I said, there is a big number of organic field crop producer in the state. We are basically the leader in the country. So there is a lot of need for reducing the tillage-based weed control and then giving the alternate options to these organic producers. So those are some of the major projects we are leading. In addition to those research projects, we are also initiating some extension and outreach efforts in the state. And as I said, this herbicide resistance survey we are doing in the state, we are taking this as a regional approach now. We have got some funding from multi-state hatch projects looking at the Northeast level, because these big weeds or invasive species are not just coming to New York, but overall in the Northeast. So those are some of the current projects we are leading.
It's time for our famous three.
WiseNetics turns podcast airtime into brand authority. We don't sell ads, we elevate voices. Curious how far your voice can go to become a reference in the industry and attract more leads? Scan the QR code and discover how we can turn your expertise into unmatched brand authority. Let's transform expertise into influence, starting now.
Well, I'm really excited to watch your program as it grows and expands and you really start utilizing that group of grad students. But unfortunately for the podcast as we go, I'm out of time. I wasted too much time enjoying just catching up and seeing how things are going with you. But with that, we're going to wrap up with our three final questions that every guest asks. And the first is, what's been a good go-to work resource?
So for the weeds, I would say, I really like a lot of books, but I really like the weeds of the Northeast. It's coming to the Northeast, I'm learning new things and new weeds. I would recommend, this is written by Dr. Joel Neal, who was here at Cornell, but he has been at North Carolina State now. This is a very excellent book for especially identifying weeds, understanding their ecology, biology, which is a very key if you're thinking about managing those weeds. So I would definitely recommend Weeds of the Northeast. When I was at Kansas, I used to like Weeds of the West. But this is my to-go everyday book that I refer to a lot of questions I receive from farmers. So this is a very good source for understanding some of these weeds present in different parts of the country, either weeds of the West or weeds of the Northeast.
Yeah. So, and the next one would be, what do you do in your free time?
Well, we hardly get free time, but whenever we get, I like to, go out and walk and, listen music. That is one hobby. But I also, like cooking. I cook different dishes from India, so the cuisines are unique and different, and I can cook all the Indian dishes.
What's the one dish you're best known for?
So paneer tikka masala, it's one, and I recently visited. Actually, I just came from India last week, and I enjoyed all the dishes, all the meals I had. Lot of chicken, lot of chicken masala, and lot of pulses, lot of these beans, along with the rice and chapati. So I can cook and I can eat as much as I can.
So, final, where do people go to find out more about your research program?
Yeah, if folks are interested to learn about my program, they can basically look at my website. It's called Sustainable Weed Management Lab at Cornell. They can type in Google, they will find out. It's a recent page. We have still, it's a work in progress. We are, putting material there, whatever information we have. And I'm going to start a YouTube channel, and the link will be there in that website. They can look for any updated informations about the projects I just mentioned at Cornell in terms of weed control. So I will definitely recommend going visit that web page and maybe subscribe that page, because I'm going to start sending some information, putting some new information there very soon.
Well, everybody, that wraps up another episode of the Crop Science Podcast Show presented by Wysenetics. Thanks for joining us today with our guest, Dr. Vipan Kumar, Associate Professor, Extension Weed Science Specialist with Soil and Crop Sciences at Cornell University. Remember, if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe channel so you get notifications every time we drop a new podcast. Share this video with your peers and friends, and also make sure you leave a comment if you have any suggestions for new guests or questions for our old guest. Vipan, thank you so much for joining us today. I enjoyed catching back up with you.
Thank you so much, Brian. I enjoyed this chat, and hopefully it went well.